Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asian Leadership Conference webinar series hosted by the Joseonilbo. I'm Hannah Jhan, Assistant Professor of International Business at EHWA's Graduate School of International Studies and Director of EHWA Center for Global Social Responsibility. We are joined today by two distinguished guests within the beauty and fashion industries, Una Chanel and Linlin Jacobs. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
We'll be talking about a very timely and important topic this afternoon under the theme of understanding competition, innovation, and sustainability in the COVID-19 era. As our panelists know, there's been a huge human toll due to the effects of COVID-19, as well as very real economic impacts across the world. Some industries have suffered immensely, such as tourism and travel, while others have flourished, including many subsectors of the IT industry, and more recently, the beauty industry. So what I'd like to do today is facilitate a discussion about what patterns we're seeing in terms of the competitive or ultra-competitive environment, the role of innovation, and the acceleration of sustainability for businesses in the COVID-19 era. As our speakers are experts in the beauty and fashion industries, we will use their insights in these areas as a basis point for our discussion. So today's webinar should last roughly 1 hour, which will hopefully give us enough time to discuss the issues in our agenda today. But before we get started, I would like to provide a more detailed background for each of our guests. First, Una Chanel is a serial entrepreneur in the luxury industry. She's a fashion, beauty, and image consultant who started her career as an international model and has worked and consulted with most European fashion houses, as well as luxury and mass market beauty brands. Una has a vast knowledge and deep understanding of the insights of luxury, retail, skincare, and beauty markets globally, and has helped rebrand and launch many well-established companies. Given her expertise and experience, Una has expanded her consultation work and founded Author Media, Author Magazine, Author Daily, and Fourth Shoes with a unique and refreshing point of view, breaking new ground in the luxury consumer market with a special skill of quintessential image making, campaigns, editorial content, and branding that has cultural impact. Author is the industry insider's go-to guide, purchased by the most established art collectors, CEOs, and designers, and is a collectible for many key people in luxury design and fashion. Over the years, Author has become the leader in image making and branding with its exclusive content and interviews. It strives to work with only the best talent across the globe, featuring iconic and timeless people in fashion, culture, design, and arts, setting global trends and serving as an exclusive exchange platform for the most recognized, dynamic, and extraordinary talents. Thank you so much for joining us today, Una. Maybe you'd like to greet our viewers.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you guys.
Thank you. And it's great to see you. We'll have more chance to hear from you.
This is going to be an exciting hour. I'm so happy to be joining you guys. This is such an honor. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm also honored to introduce Linlin Jacobs. Linlin is the co-chair CEO of China International Beauty Expo and is responsible for the organization's 6 beauty and wellness shows per year in Guangzhou, Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen. Linlin sits on the board of All China Federation of Industry and Commerce, Beauty Culture and Cosmetic Chamber as the head of international relations and oversees all countries' beauty industry supply chain and retail affairs for the chamber. Previously a designer and anthropologist, Linlin has an impressive track record as a serial entrepreneur and creative. She is the youngest fellow in the inaugural China Leadership Program at the Aspen Institute, endorsed by David Rubenstein in 2013. She joined CIBE in 2015, and since then, her contributions to innovation and sustainability efforts to the beauty industry have brought international awareness on the beauty industry in China. In 2017, she was appointed the Beauty and Wellness Cultural Ambassador by the China-Australia Chamber of Commerce. Linlin is also an active speaker and representative for China's beauty industry around the world at global conferences, such as NetCom Conference in Milan, Retail Conference in Melbourne, and the Asian Leadership Conference in Seoul. Outside of work, she plays an active role in the community, and alongside her mother, Madam Maya, they are among some of the most understated but progressive philanthropists for CE Foundation, the largest sustainable environmental NGO. In 2019, Linlin was elected to be a non-party representative for the National People's Congress Standing Committee. The latest report showed a track record of 73% recovering rate of senior cancer patients with TCM, Buddhist nutrition, and meditation practice in her family's humanistic cancer retreat program at Dafo Temple in Guangzhou. Thank you so much for joining us, Linlin. Maybe you can say a word to our viewers.
Hello everyone, I'm Linlin. I'm very happy to be here. Very happy to have the opportunity to be at the conference. Having gone very much looking forward to the next hour.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're making sure that our internet connection and if we have any troubleshooting issues, that we'll try to make sure that they don't hurt our webinar as much as possible. So thank you to both of you for your patience, and we hope our viewers will also appreciate the hard work that's going on behind the scenes. So maybe we can start today's discussion by fleshing out the current reality in terms of changes or disruptions we've seen in terms of consumption, the supply chain, and what this has meant for the industry. So it's been about 6 months since the COVID-19 pandemic has spread worldwide, and many industry watchers anticipate bleak forecasts for industries such as beauty and fashion, probably because of social distancing, and many of us are just no longer going out anymore. So some view beauty and fashion as luxuries rather than necessities. And when we look at the products themselves, the role of user experience and testing is still very important for a lot of consumers. So when it comes to growth prospects for the beauty and fashion industries in the middle of this pandemic and probably beyond, how convincing do you find the argument that social distancing, necessity over luxury, and the need for engaging consumer experiences all weigh on growth prospects for beauty and fashion? So maybe we can start with Una and your thoughts on the current landscape.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. I think the question is very interesting to look at it. I think we first have to define what is luxury in general and how we consume. The way we look at luxury right now, I think, especially after COVID, I think health is part of your luxury. Without health, you don't have anything. So as I look at it and I pick a picture and everything going online, there can be testing in the skincare. You can I'm sure you can order samples online, and you can have an experience online. It is a different kind of luxury experience. For me, I think health will be always first. In a global or local scale, it will be always first, and luxury is viewed right now as health and time. So I think the definition of luxury per se has changed quite a lot past 6 months, and how we view what is current luxury today is very different from last 6 months ago. So for us to be able to go out, to socialize with friends, to be able to have dinners and not be scared, or be able to connect with the world around us and be normal or travel. It's very different from 6 months ago. I believe it's not so much anymore having that fancy car or having that latest bag, as much as I would love to say, because I come from the industry of it. It's always great fun to have that bag, but luxury is never a necessity. It's a need. Nobody needs to have 20 cars or those 20 handbags or 20 shoes. It's a desire that we create. It's a desire that we want. So I think it's to understand how we communicate that aspect of luxury and what it is currently, and as things change very rapidly, is how we can view that, and what is the real luxury behind the luxury brands, because they have to figure out too how, whether it's a mainstream market of luxury or a luxurious skincare brand or luxurious fashion brand, is how we convey the message, and especially online, and how we engage the user experience while staying safe. I think this is very interesting. But I always think health is luxury, and without health you have nothing. So social distancing will be a key in until we find a vaccine. I think this will be a very, very interesting way of looking how we can develop our technology and push things forward. And I believe things will jump in 1 year, the development of technology for sure will jump in 1 year that it would have taken in normal circumstances to 10 years. So I'm really looking forward this exciting and also very agile time at the moment. I think there's a lot of opportunities in every great disastrous thing. There is always an opportunity. It's not a great thing for society, and there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to develop. But I think as long as we are healthy and maintain that, experiences around can be created. So whether that's trying something on or finding a way to engage a consumer to a new product, I think those are things that are going to be challenging regardless and going to be exciting too. So that's how I look at it.
Okay, great. I'm sure that Linlin also has some views with regards to what's going on in terms of consumption and the supply chain, and whether this is weighing down on the industry. So maybe Linlin, you can chip in over here.
Hello. Yes, I think Una pointed out a really wonderful point there. I think the concept of luxury has changed a lot in 2000. I would like to talk about my history. You can't hear me. Please do relax. And I'm going to relax. If you can hear me again, please let me know.
Yep.
So, at the beginning of 2020, we realized there is quite a drastic change in China. At the moment, social distancing isn't as severely implemented in China as we are slowly recovering our economy and our social life. But in the past few months, from February to May 2020, we can see more than 1,100 brands went into Tmall, meaning went into digital e-commerce. So you can see a lot of the changes in industries and fast consumer brands, FMCGs going on due to social distancing and self-learning shopping. And China an approach to social distancing. So we were really strict at the beginning of the year, but we very quickly controlled the situation. And right now, the first two cities like Shanghai, where I am.
So I think we have a little bit of a troubleshooting issue with Linlin right now, as she was talking about the reality of social distancing
in terms of commercial life. Am I clear, or shall I?
Yes, I think you can. Right. So we heard about social distancing and then the move towards e-commerce that you mentioned in China. So your connection is back, and so if you can continue, that'd be great.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, from February to May, there are more than 1,100 brands set up a Tmall store. Therefore, we can see in terms of supply chain and distribution channels change a lot in terms of e-commerce. But regarding the concept of luxury, I think beauty industry is a great example for that, because at the 90s or late 80s, when my mother started the industry, imported beauty products and skincares were considered luxury. They were charging the same tax. They required the same tax as alcohol and cigarettes. And today, it's 30% as fast consumer goods as your food. Beauty products actually has reduced the tax 3 times in the past 30 years. So you can see it's luxury category become a habitual cleansing process, become a self-caring process. It's slightly different from fashion. Beauty has progressed quite a bit. I would say there are different categories of beauty, and during the pandemic, were the necessity of problems such as masks for cleansing, every time we have a mask covering. For color cosmetics, there is a lot of eye color palettes that came. But most importantly, you can see new problems arise due to social distancing or particular change of habits. So I believe that will always change, like racial issues change really rapidly, and as actually one necessity will change over time, depends on geographic locations, and that's my business part of the world.
I think I'll switch gears a little bit. So we talked about the current landscape in terms of consumer preferences, and maybe we'll move over to the nature of competition in the COVID-19 era. And so one of the direct effects of the pandemic has been the closing of borders, which has added to the kind of super or ultra competitive environment for businesses. So at a national or political scale, we've seen competition for resources due to disruptions in the supply chain. There's greater competition among businesses in distribution and reaching customers. And we're also having to respond to changes in consumer preferences, as both of our speakers have mentioned. So since both of you are involved in the industry at the local and the global level, I wonder if you could share key examples of how you have seen competition heightened during the pandemic. But maybe just as importantly, whether you've seen any signs of cooperation as well. So this element of competition, given this environment, but also potential modes or avenues. Maybe we'll start with Linlin, if you could continue on from the previous discussion. Or perhaps we can start with Una, who's been waiting so patiently. Maybe you'll start and talk about the nature of competition as well as cooperation.
I love the fact that every time it's my turn, it went blank. So I think Una should start first.
Yes, okay, that's perfect. So we'll start with Una.
If we have Linlin now, I think we should use the opportunity to catch her while we can. Otherwise, we might lose her again.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let me start then. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
So in terms of, I think we can never really do business without understanding and integrating political changes. And if we reference back to the 1920s Spanish flu, the most effective approach is often totalitarian approach, where population acts on a very strong, firm policies. That's how we recover from, the pandemic so far, and how we can get back to businesses. And people often now ask me about the inland economy. The inland economy, meaning that because due to the growth of the country borders, we focus on developing an inland trading and inland traveling, domestic traveling industry. So you can see a clear competition inland. Very effective approach. It's also a design approach. It's turning something similar, competitive, to a healthy competition. And
I think until we get Lyndon back, maybe we can have Una chime in on the nature of competition as well as cooperation from her vantage point.
Yeah, so basically, Lyndon's back.
Yes. In 2020, I hope you catch this. In 2020, we had a research of 86% of population will consider spending less, will lower their expenditure, meaning that we understand that although we have a generation Z of spending power, we will reconsider the way of we spending in this year. But the good example of the is we realized this year an Australian brand called Rationale Group. It's working with Mori Pacific. So you can see Japan and Korea working together to personalize beauty treatment plans and R&D. And I think it's really interesting to see that across borders, different brands are working together in the same industry. Another fun example is Fenty Beauty. Fenty from under LVMH and Haiti. Haiti is an interesting study of social selling tea retail, and it's one. In fact, it's the number one, the most popular Gen Z tea shops in China now. And so you have beauty brands and tea brands working together and create this distribution presentation, because Fenty at the moment is selling online, and then you will see the Haiti stores are working on this collaboration, and they have promotions together, so people can go into having tea, having their ice creams, socializing, understand, oh, there is a beauty brand. So you can see the idea of working together comes more. It's wider, more receptive, and people are actually more friendlier, like even friendlier to each other during this time, and kinder and open to working together. In my impression, so it's a good thing to see.
Well, it's certainly great news because we've been concerned about, ultra, a very, very hyper competitive environment, but that we do see some evidence of this type of cooperation. And Una has been super patient with us, and I know that she's very excited to share what she's been seeing from her vantage point. So I'll let you speak over here, Una.
Thank you so much, and I love what you said, Linlin. There's a lot of things that I completely align when it comes to. I think there's a lot of, you can see big shift now with focus on local and global. However, I think the success will be understanding the local needs and catering to a local community. And whatever they're traveling in Americas will be traveling in Americas, traveling in China will be traveling in China. I think a lot of tourism boards in Scandinavia have invested a lot of money in travel and local. I know for a fact that Finland has invested a lot of money in traveling in Finland just for tourism for their own people. Same in United Arab Emirates. However, they have tried to get a little bit more people to travel there, but I think it's a little concern for everyone to travel right now. So I think the sustainable factor will be the local population of a country, and how we look at this is how it defines our business. Whether we're going to be local and global, it's up to us, and how we're going to define that moving forward. I think the key is it's good to be very, very, very independent when it comes to businesses in general, because if you look at the way that the supply chain completely dropped in many things, and how we were dependent on things coming from different places, whether it was in fashion industry, whether it was from China, whether it was from Italy, or whether it was from Paris, there were many months of delays, and I think it will backtrack still, even if the production starts now again, because all the factories were closed globally, which was a great thing for the planet, but interesting term for economy. However, I think the local community can support the growth of each individual country, and I think it's how we communicate that to our immediate circle and the community, and reflect that. Also, I think the rush to online and how important it is. Like, for example, for us, when the COVID was, I was in Dubai, and we were very limited to very close resources. You couldn't go to the mall, and even if you could, you wouldn't want to go to the mall. So a lot of the things did happen online, and it was the companies that didn't have online presence suddenly had an online presence and were able to cater whatever the services were that were prior offline, were now all online. So it's a very interesting way of looking things. So for me, the key examples of competition is how specifically offline companies went to online, and I think how smaller companies were more agile and able to adjust. And I think the key of the success in this very specific incident in with COVID is how agile and how fast we can adjust and adapt to the needs of our immediate circle of clients or the people that we communicate or engage, and in a bigger broad of like global circle of business of how we can engage the business communities and make sure. I think global is always stronger than local. Like it's amazing to have a local business that will thrive and grow bigger, but two is always better than one, I must say, and three is more than two. So more of a knowledge and understanding and unity we create right now in this very agile environment. I think stronger we can be as a planet, and I think COVID has definitely removed all the borders, because yes, we have implemented a lot of borders back again, like with the travel. There's certain countries that we cannot travel. Certain countries have a bigger issue. There's certain countries aren't welcome to certain countries anymore. But ultimately, we all have the same problem. Whether it's a bigger scale or smaller scale, it's the same problem. So basically, it emphasized how similar we are, and how either difficult our medical system is, and how we're susceptible our medical system is to help our people, and how fast businesses are able to adjust. Like bigger businesses, I look at luxury businesses in a bigger scale a little bit like a dinosaur, because luxury is a very interesting thing to put online, to communicate that online. It is a little bit like a walking dinosaur. So to turn the big dinosaur head to the right direction, it just takes a little time. So I see a massive rise of the smaller luxury companies that will pop their heads up and just keep growing. But like I think the bigger luxury companies will stir their boat a little slower and then come along and adjust while they observe the little ones pop up.
Right, and I think what you mentioned in terms of the switch to online and agility, especially for the smaller companies, within that competitive environment have also spurred new innovations given the current COVID-19 era. And that's a perfect segue to what we would like to talk about, innovations within this particular environment. So I'm curious to hear some of the most compelling innovations this pandemic has brought about for the beauty and fashion industries from both of your perspectives. You've already hinted about this already when you talked about the competitive environment, as well as some modes of cooperation that we're seeing. Maybe we'll start with Una, just because we have a train of thought from the previous question of what specific innovations that you've seen when you have, say, this traditional kind of slow-moving dinosaur industry that's trying to catch up in a way with some of these faster growing players.
That's such a good question, and I think this is exactly what's going to happen now. As I said earlier on, I think the industry will have to have 10 or 20-year leap in 1 year to 6 months time. Otherwise, it will not sustain or survive. Just basically for the cash flow purposes, no matter how much cash you have right now, you still would have to generate this year's revenue. Otherwise, it's not going to be profitable. So the way I personally look at this is a great example of how we communicate right now. It's how two-dimensional this aspect of communication is, and how much we have space to improve. So for example, like if the technology would be in level of 2020 globally, I could be projected in everyone's home with Hannah and Linlin, and there would not be any technological difficulties, and Linlin wouldn't disappear, or like I believe like we are so advanced, but we're in such a there's such a bigger way of developing communication or like marketing or shopping experiences. These can be all implied, like virtual reality, augmented reality, um, or the AI. It's artificial intelligence. Is that can be implied to so many different things. And yes, I see the necessary effects with human interaction, but this two-dimensional communication, for example, or two-dimensional shopping, if you look at, I'm not to say like um, Taobao or Alibaba or Amazon aren't great places for shop or Net-a-Porter, but it's like they are all very flat platforms. They're all very there's nothing that communicates you or engages you or interacts with you. Like the most interactive places that they are on Alibaba, the videos. And I'm like, if the videos are only way for us to communicate luxury or mass market product, how we can push that forward? I think now it's a great way because we will be stuck. There, a lot of people were seeing polarized effects between luxury or retail or shopping in general, and they saying there will be a second wave. So I think there will be a great time for us to develop technology, and somebody needs to push this envelope forward. It's just basic communication, shopping experiences, how we engage, and how we push that forward, how we develop that forward. I think this is going to be so interesting to see what happens in the augmented reality world or virtual reality, because nowadays we don't need anymore the goggles. You can just have things on your phone and they will layer things up, and you can just interact very easy as is. So I'm truly looking forward of the rest of the year for the development and see how fast things do change. I hope they do change fast, because look at us right now.
Right. So speaking of innovations in technology, we have Linlin here. Yes, you're still here, and we would love to hear your views in terms of innovation, new types of perhaps even markets that you're seeing. And I know that Una was mentioned a lot, especially with regards to the fashion industry, although she did touch on beauty as well. And so I'd love to hear what Lyndon, you would like to share about innovations, exciting innovations that you're seeing in this ultra competitive environment.
I think such a what Una mentioned in terms of technology, I think is the priority is to solve. We can see an urgency of solving communications digitally that open up a better channel for us to communicate. Second of all, in my industry, I see a rising new sectors, um, especially anti-aging and skincare sectors. And I personally, I enjoy sort of the journalism of investigating humanity from all walks of life. And I see, while I was investigating in my industry, and so the consumers, one of the, back in my mom's generations, you see most of the beauty and cosmetic skincare consumers are predominantly female. I mean, even at the most depression times, you will see that, that's where Revlon's lipstick, where the symbol of the most affordable luxury, still sought after during the time. So during the pandemic, we can see, actually there are a lot of unicorns, innovations coming out, especially on men's skincare. Um, in 2020, we saw a Tmall's increasingly selling package for men's basic essential skincare, from cleansing serums, and we also realized the post 95 generation. You have 20% of post 95 people who were born after 1995 male consumers are using BB cream, and 50% of them are using eyebrow pencils. And in fact, about 5% of them start looking at hair implants very young. And we also realized that China has suspended in students age as young as 16. I think that due to um, the culture of a long, I think we have a long history of um, not solving the problem after the problem arises. It's recognizing we have this body that changes during season and different stages of our life, and then we kind of started to look after it early. And for the Generation Z, we see a dominant unicorn business came out in the beauty industry for very fictional target social groups such as gamers, video gamers. L'Oreal has like specific SKUs targeting on the young generation of gamers and cosplay that who put a lot of makeups on their face. We also see a lot of social selling brands that came out specific targeted on thematic social groups. So I think we need to recognize the China market is a very embracing market. There's all types of living habits and socializing behaviors. And during pandemic, even though we don't see each other, there are ways of communicating and play with each other, talk to each other. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to see each other and touch each other. And as I mentioned before, wearing a mask, for most people, it may seem very distant because you can't see people's facials, and can't see whether they're good looking or not. We can't talk like that because it's kind of wipe out a prejudice of how I should, determine to behave. So you're more open and polite, and also, you expose your eye. There's no distraction of other facial expressions except your eyes. So you start having eye contact with people who you don't normally do, such as deliverable like deliveries boys, security guards, people passing by, and you learn to smile with your eyes, just spread that kindness. And I think that evolves and inspire new businesses to put the center of their culture, the center of their user experience upon human connections.
So I think taking both Una and Linlin's remarks, there's a really interesting kind of two-sided aspect. And so Una's really interested and excited about innovations, technological innovations that are taking place, enhancing consumer kind of experiences and looking at that realm. And interestingly, when we talk about Linlin's perspective about even when we're wearing a mask, we actually have more intimate interactions, especially with looking at one another, and so kind of magnifying the human aspect. And so one question maybe that I would like to ask as a follow-up is, in Korea, I don't know if you know, but we have a very vibrant MICE industry. So that's meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. And one kind of direct impact of COVID-19 has been a lot of things moving from the offline to the online format, just like this, which we often maybe we prefer just meeting together in person, especially because of the little bit of troubleshooting, but great you're all here now. So I'm wondering, and I know that Una's still very excited about the innovations and we'll probably see those continue to be a big focus going forward. But do you think also that maybe just as humans, we're still driven to and kind of long for the person-to-person contact, especially when it comes to your industries and how we engage in business. And maybe Una can talk a little bit about, I was very interested in Fashion Week and how something so iconic, can you really replicate that experience online as you would offline? And then in the case of Linlin, because she's been involved so much in expos in China, how we can we really see a mass exodus going from the offline to the online? So maybe I'll start with Una with that.
Right. Well, honestly, the digital fashion weeks, as exciting quote marks it can be, as I mentioned earlier on, the 2D of our communication, whether it's a fashion videos or it seems very limited, and it looks like we have so much space to grow in that an amazing digital space if we don't have those capabilities of being together. I believe human interaction will never subside. We need human contact. We want human contact. And not only that, but there's a reason why fashion editors or magazine editors go to Fashion Week. It's not only to dress up and look fancy. It's actually nothing to do with that. A lot of people have a little different perspective on it because of the social influencers. But the reality of a fashion show is to see the detail of the collection. So from the actual invitation that you will get, to the mood of the music, to the entry, to the lighting, to the story of the garment. We are storytellers in the in fashion industry, and especially in luxury industry, we tell a story, or we tell a journey of the collection. So in that aspect, we just witnessed one of the most expensive fashion weeks, which is couture, which is unique, to be all online. And I saw some of the challenges that the brands face, and the challenges from the brand's perspective, and also the challenges from the editor's perspective, because I can't see the seams. I can't see how the garment moves. It's a completely different visual. If you close your eyes and you think about this, if you see a beautiful girl or a beautiful boy walking by, dressed very well, you end up looking at him or her and you see beautiful details. And when that is projected to your two-dimensional screen, you don't have the essence of the girl. There may be a smell that walks by. There may be a perfume that goes by. The dress flows beautifully. You don't have that experience in right now, as in our limited space of the communication. There's just lacking that. So I think that needs to change regardless. But fashion weeks, I think, will scale back drastically going forward. I think right now, when we looked at the men's fashion week, there was already some fashion shows produced back, which was really interesting. However, what I saw was the current press from the country, because usually what would happen, we would go all to New York, and then we would all go to London, and then we would all go to Milan and to Paris, and they would be press around the world. They'd be from Korea, they would be from China, Finland, United Arab Emirates, US, and everyone will come together. It's sort of an exchange of energy, of ideas, of what's going to happen to the next season, who's going to work with who, and what's the next buzz. And that's kind of the get together. But I think that will be more of the industry insiders only. I think the scaling back will be because of the safety issues, number one. And already what we saw in Paris on Men's Fashion Week, when they did produce the shows, there was a lot of social distancing. Like Balmain, for example, did the show on the river, and there was only public audience. So it was done for publicity, basically. It's always done for publicity, but the editors do need to see the details. Otherwise, for us, it's difficult to communicate the collection if we don't see what we're communicating. And Jacques Remus did a collection on the fields, and he had chairs apart in hay fields and models walking around. It was beautiful. And however, there was only French press. There was limited press, but like I'm gonna think now, coming to September Fashion Week, everyone's still sort of debating if there's a second wave, what's going to happen, and if it's going to be like it was in February when things started. It will be very difficult, because Fashion Week is all about meeting, exchanging information, and now we have to limit the physical contact of everyone. Usually there will be 200 people in a one room sitting on a fashion show, going from show to show. That I don't see happening anytime soon, returning the way it was. So as there is the need of human connection, there needs to be a need to keep the humans alive, to be connected. So
Right.
I think that's going to be, I think the priorities will have to change a bit. But like, for me, the key is to have human connection. And I think that could never subside, even if the digital will be pushed as far as reflecting every detail. You would still not be able to smell things, or
Mm.
not yet. I'm aware there's the 5D, there can be implemented a smell, but still there's nothing to experience the actual experience versus the digital experience, in my opinion. What do you think?
Absolutely.
May I say you and Hannah both look like you smell very nice.
I try.
No, so I think um,
But
I just want to I sorry to cut you off. I just want to let you know that.
yeah, no, it exactly.
Fantastic.
But it's because it's the two-dimensional. Like, we don't have that. Like, uh, all of us look like we smell very nice, but the actual essence of the person
Mm.
is not there.
Right. And actually, before Linlin left us for a little bit, we were talking about Korea's mice industry, and that it's a huge. It really depends on offline presence, and because of the recent environment, a lot of things have moved online, which has spurred a lot of the innovation that we're excited about. But at the same time, it's still a very kind of experiential, existential, physical, tangible type of environment that really
Yeah.
in beauty as well as fashion. And so Una was kind enough to share about what's been going on with Fashion Week and how they're using kind of more technology, but also that we can't ignore the human aspect.
Yeah,
And
I
I
got
know,
that. I got that.
yes,
Yeah.
and then Lynn, I'm hoping that you could share about, oh dear. I knew that Linlin had something very, very exciting to share about some recent expos that have been happening in China. And I think perhaps Linlin can share now what happened with the recent expos, beauty
Yeah.
expo in China, and how you were able to manage that despite the difficult environment.
Um, our usual Shanghai show is normally in May. We postponed it to July, which is this month. We had 1 month notice from the government saying that we can do it. So we had 1 month to prepare a 200,000 square meter show.
Wow.
But the good thing is we we had an unexpected turnout. I think we have about more than 80,000, close to 90,000 people came, and in 3 days, and it was really exciting because to understand that we cover from the whole supply chain, so people from R&Ds, learnings, distributions, people from machineries, also packaging, and professional sectors on spa sector, and also cosmetic and skincare for consumer products. All of them came together to discuss. We have about 30 conferences coincide happening during the show. So those are very much packed, and we have semi-permanent tattoo artists for eyebrow and eyeliners and hairdressers came in to learn about new ways of doing businesses. So I think one thing that people understand is a trade show should be completely online. It defeats the purpose of trading. Not just today, we're not just trading goods, we're trading ideas, we're trading connections. We as much as we can actually talk like this online. There were moments that you really want to like kind of shake hands. You feel affirmed to shake hands and feel the temperature of someone that you may be working with or become friends with, and that is actually quite important in business today and in the past. For my industry, we had an unexpected result this year. We have our Guangzhou show next month. Very packed. I think we're going to do a big show because it was two shows combined into one, and then Beijing and Shenzhen. So this year we have 4 shows instead of 6, but we're looking forward to ensure that people are learning and have make the most out of the experience.
Okay, that's great. And we look forward to learning from your own experience and that you would share any best practices as well. I know a lot of masks and detectors were involved just to handle the number of people, but I think that's it's just a testament to how important that human connection is, even during these difficult times. And
We have over 100 times, we have over 100 security health check process rehearsals before the show within the month. We had 3 security checkpoints and health checkpoints. So it's really a lot of effort to make the human connection happen. And I really hope that there's one thing that I want to share is I don't think there is a second way or third ways. I think um, this this virus is going to stay with us for a while.
Right.
In my opinion, I think there's ways of control it that we're able to, and the way of dealing with it, to feel at ease. That understanding is going to stay with us for a little bit, if not for the rest of the year and the year to come. But there's one thing that at least we can actually have it turn this adversity into our advantage is the fact that we have time and space to reevaluate what is valuable and what is our value. And that will bring a positive effect on doing business and trading and human connections. And I really hope that this will stay with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that your last point on what's important and values is a perfect segue to the last major theme that we're going to tackle for today, and that's the issue of sustainability, which I know both of you are very familiar with and have blended that very actively in a lot of the work that you've been doing. So we've seen a greater focus on sustainability in terms of packaging, ingredients or materials, and it's also a big driver, having been conscious consumers or sustainability-driven firms, civil society, NGOs, and even the government. And so at the same time, we also see a dilemma, which of course both of you are also familiar with. If we generate more sales, this means more consumption, maybe even more waste. There's also a practical difficulty for some firms, especially up and coming, maybe small and medium-sized enterprises, where it's already a challenge to be financially viable as a company without having to think about issues of sustainability. So I'm wondering, for the last question for today, from your perspective, to what extent is the industry embracing sustainability? So can we call this a new normal? What do you think is driving this? And what can we do about those who are currently left behind? And maybe we can start with Linlin for this question.
Yes, I think I want to give a little bit of simple takeaways. And I think sustainability, I do not have to convince anyone how important that is for the environment. But I think that the idea of sustainability is beyond our attitude towards the environment. We can start with very small steps that it will have a ripple effect to our environment. For example, I think with startups, we should have the idea and the concept of sustainability input into the beginning of building of the company. And that will, in terms of choice of procurement, but prioritize the sustainability of your business to survive is inevitable. We cannot ask people to say, if you're not followed this diligently, and then you can't survive, you can't really not let them survive. So most importantly, we've got to understand that there are stages of milestone for sustainability implementations for business, especially in beauty. We are in an exhibition we're in the exhibition business, and the exhibition business is the most wasteful business, where people building up and take 3 days, and then afterwards, 3 days after, you get torn down. So there are ways of doing this, that milestones that people could set up, say, how can I, this year, what I'm going to make changes. Second year, if we reach this, let's work towards that. So I would suggest on all companies in our industries to actually set very short term but deliverable milestones for sustainability to fulfill, and don't set a too big a goal for you to think about and feel guilty about it. Let's just aim very realistically and try to implement that in a reasonable amount of time. And if you build that from the beginning of the company culture, people who work for you will stay with you and have that conscience from the beginning. So I think that is a very good way to start for startups. For companies that will really mature and come into thinking about what they can do in terms of the environment, to give back, I think there are a lot of projects that are available to implement your, maybe split up some of your profits to sponsor projects, and also started to look at what you can involve your staff member to do those projects away from your same category of business, to give them something outside of work, and therefore becoming a habit and become part of their life. And I think that is something that we can build upon. And lastly, I think people should look at sustainability, the way to approach sustainability, like the way that we approach marriage. I think marriage in the 1900s, you get married to survive. You see an ad in Learning Planet saying that, oh, a farmer's looking for a wife who has the ability to mend cows and hopefully has a healthy physique. And then later on, you have Virginia Woolf and all the writers talking about love in the marriage. So you need to have love. And then you have happiness, and then becoming the better version of yourself in marriage. And today we look at sustainability, could be in the same way. We look at survival, but actually to form a unity to sustain the environment, to help the idea to be there first. And then say, I love the environment, now I have the ability and surviving as a business to contribute to it. And then it comes to, by being kind to doing very good actions and measurable actions, that we can bring our staff, bring our people, community together, and that becomes a identity economy to have the incentive of being sustainable in the business to encourage the amplified effects. So that's my idea of sustainability for my line of work. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a new normal. It's not new. And it's not old neither. It's just something that has to stay with us and always to remember and have the awareness of what we have done will affect people and everything around us.
I think that's a great way of thinking about it. And maybe just because of time, maybe if Una would like to have the last few words, and then we can wrap up today's webinar.
Thank you so much, Linlin. I really like the way you look at the industry of beauty and how it's not a norm, how it just is. I think, however, in fashion, it's a little bit more broader topic, and unfortunately, companies look at this as a little bit of a trend. And unfortunately, the trend in our industry means it's very transitional. It should be a bit more present and a bit more. It should have a little bit more longevity. As everyone knows, fashion has a massive impact on the world. It's one of the most polluting industries in the world. However, nobody is going to go naked on the street. So we will know that this will continue, but how it will continue would need to be more conscious, because right now the companies that do and have made choices for past 20 to 30 years to be conscious about environment and the production, and are not financially viable. Like there's a lot of really, really big companies that are not making money because they're conscious of their footprint on the environment. And most of the bigger designers that we talk, and they're like, for us to be conscious on a global scale would have to stop the production completely. And I don't think that's going to be the key. It's like looking back in the day, like even 10 years ago or 20 years ago, there was like one yogurt versus 20 yogurts right now, like, or like one milk, and now there's soy, oat, coconut, and there's 20 different versions of coconut milks when you go to a grocery store. So I think the variety of choice is not growing, and also the modern consumer is more aware and does their research. So I think I think once the modern consumer understands the effort that the brand puts behind, and because a lot of the consumers right now, and Gen Z, the latest generation, that would be the new consumer for us, or the millennials, I think what they do is they really appreciate the fact that we are environmentally conscious, and they're like the scandals of burning clothes or getting rid of clothes that were in stock is not an option anymore. You know, we have to be more conscious of our environment and conscious of the business, of the structure. So I think it's a very timely thing right now.
Right. Well, thank you so much to both of you, to Linlin as well as to Una, for the insight that you've given in terms of competition, innovation, and sustainability in the COVID-19 era. Thank you so much for your patience with troubleshooting, and I hope we'll be able to host you in person very soon. And thank you once again for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.